assessment system can evolve as a learning tool? How can we promote active learning in the classroom by giving valuable inputs from the assessment practices? An understanding needs to be created among the educators why there is a need to move from the content-oriented learning to competency-based education. So depending upon their level of understanding, then higher order thinking skill questions can be used in the board examination. Otherwise, what will happen? So education, teaching, learning, assessment, these are very, very important components. And it is coming again and again into the discussion forum. So that means there is a lot of demand for this area. And it also indicates that there are a lot of gaps existing in the current scenario. The present education system evolved after the industrialization, and we continued these practices for almost 2 centuries. And now NICE has rightly said we are with the AI natives. And whether the same kind of teaching, learning, and assessment will go with the AI natives, that's a big question the education sector as a whole is facing. The National Education Policy 2020 speaks volumes about moving away from rote learning. But educators from across the country, across the education spectrum, is struggling to find a way out. There are multiple aspects to the teaching learning process and assessment. As of now, our assessment system, it grades the students. It is being used for certifying purposes and also deciding who is successful, who is not successful, in a way connected to grading. So beyond that, whether our assessment system can evolve as a learning tool, how can we promote active learning in the classroom by giving valuable inputs from the assessment practices? And how continuous and comprehensive evaluation can help a child to grow and contribute to the betterment of the society. How to identify the potential of the learner. These are all important aspects. So let me share my presentation with you to share my thoughts on the innovative assessment practices and how the country is evolving and how the classrooms can be changed to bring the best out of every child, and how to identify the potential of every learner, and how to help the education system as a whole to be responsive to the requirements of the modern teaching learning practices. So assessment practices in general, we are only considering the year-end examination or the term-end examinations. But there is a larger meaning to it. You know, there is a famous quote from John Davy: education is not preparation for life, it is life itself. So there is a larger context. It is not that teaching should confine to preparing for exam. It should prepare a learner for life. So in the India's educational landscape, largest education system globally, as you are aware, in the school education area itself, there are 240 million students, 250 million learners in the school sector below the age of 14. And there are around 350 million from higher education and school education together. There are almost 15 lakh schools and many other lakhs in the higher education. One of the largest teacher workforce globally, crores of teachers. And with this scale, there is a lot of potential, there's a lot of opportunity as well as responsibility in it. So in this evolving condition, there is certain aspects to it as of now. There are certain characteristics of the Indian education system. As I said, it is a byproduct of the industrializations. Therefore, there is overemphasis on rote learning. So transformation in education to meet the 21st century skill is required. It demands critical thinking, collaboration, financial literacy, digital literacy, and adaptability. So instead of giving overemphasis on rote learning, content-based learning, the educational ecosystem should evolve to develop creative citizens, creative individuals with a critical thinking, collaboration, financial literacy, and problem solving skills. So there is a huge digital divide and inequality in the society among the educational institutions, among the learners, among the teachers. There is a huge divide. So there is a need to leverage technology and innovation to bring gaps in access and quality. There is a need to prepare learners to thrive in a rapidly evolving global economy while fostering equity and inclusion. So always there is a complaint that the higher education is not aligned with the job market and the school education is not aligned with the higher education. So there is a need to bring connect between the market requirements, the higher educational aspects, and the school education preparedness. So to make our learners employable. So that is why there is always there are comments we hear from multiple areas that our graduates, our pass outs from universities and colleges are not employable. So job market is blaming the higher education is blaming the school education. Whereas a collective effort to bridge the gap is required to make our education relevant for the 21st century requirements. So there is also a gap in the teacher capacity, uneven teacher readiness for modern pedagogy. Equip teachers with the modern pedagogical skills for personalized experiential learning. Every learner is unique. Every learner has a different potential and unique potential. To identify and nurture the unique potential of each learner is the responsibility of the system as a whole. Whether our system allows the learner to come up according to his taste, aspiration, and skill set. There is also infrastructure and resource gap, the rural urban divide, the north south divide. So there is a need to invest in equitable infrastructure and use of en- technology enabled resources for bridging this gap. It can be virtual labs, online learning, and similar kind of technologically enabled services. So National Education Policy 2020 is focusing on transformational roadmap to build on equity, flexibility, and quality. So the primary focus of national education policy is to bring equity, quality, flexibility, inclusivity, and accountability to the society through education. And it also focuses on learner centric education. How a learner centric education will happen without using assessment mechanism fruitfully. Indian values with a global outlook. That is another focus of the national education policy. So the NEP's targets are 100% gross enrollment ratio, preschool to secondary by 2030, higher education participation to be raised to 50% by 2035, shift from rote learning to competency-based interdisciplinary education, emphasis on critical thinking, problem solving, and adaptability, universal foundation literacy and numeracy. So to achieve these objectives, NEP is also suggesting structural shift, multidisciplinary learning, flexible curriculum pathways, experiential and inquiry-based pedagogy, reduced content load, deeper learning. All these strategies are suggested by the National Education Policy to bridge the gap. So let us see how assessment can support the learning mechanism, the role of assessment in education. So assessment is more than grading. It is the objective of assessment is not the grade the the students as pass or fail. It's a tool to identify learning gaps. It provides feedback for improvement. It guide instructional strategies. Then only the assessment will become meaningful. As of now, in the Indian context particularly, the assessment or the word examination or the word test, it's very threatening. It is only grading students as failures or successful. But this powerful tool is not being used to promote learning. So the research shows that formative assessment can improve learning outcomes by 30 to 50% when it is effectively implemented. When the teachers use assessment as a tool for learning or promote learning, it can improve 30 to 50% learning outcomes. The UNESCO's 2023 report also says that countries that integrate continuous assessment show better literacy and numeracy performance. So it's a very powerful tool for promoting learning. So the case for changing assessment, the traditional assessment, it is overemphasis on memorization. It is only one-time testing and it's focus on correct answers rather than the conceptual understanding. It only see what is the end result. It is teacher driven and it only mean scores. The country, we in India, we struggle. The people, the parents, the students, the teachers, everyone understands only the language of marks. If it is 100 out of 100, then everyone is happy. But no one is looking into the essential elements of learning. What is the understanding of the child who scored 100 in implementing the concepts learned in the real life scenario? Then there is a huge gap. So the modern assessment, the more focus is on understanding and development of skills, from memorization to understanding of concepts and development of skills and competencies. It is continuous and formative assessment instead of one-time testing. The focus is on problem solving and critical thinking. It is student-centered and collaborative, and it gives feedback to the system for improvement. So modern assessment shifts the focus from testing for judgment to assessment for learning. So there is a need to adapt and adopt to the modern assessment practices to bring a shift to the entire learning process. The teaching, learning, and assessment should go hand in hand, and assessment should be used to change the classroom transaction and also to promote active learning. So the purpose of modern assessment is to support learner rather than ranking. It encourages higher order thinking, creativity, and collaboration. It provides timely and actionable feedback. It identifies students' strengths and areas of improvements. It enables educators and policymakers to make data-driven decisions. The example using regular quizzes, reflections in the classes, whether it is mathematics or other subjects, it can improve understanding of students. So it serves two purposes: the level of understanding of the students before introducing a topic, and after introducing the topic, the level of understanding and learning. So there is lot of scope for using modern assessment techniques in promoting teaching learning in classroom. So the NEP 2020 has clearly recommending for reforms in assessment. So NEP recommends for moving away from high stake exams to continuous formative assessment. It is nothing new. Even in the previous education policy, there is a recommendation for continuous and comprehensive evaluation. So those who are familiar with the CBSE system, they may recall that there was CCE introduced into the system in 2008 to 2017. Later on, it was rolled back. But the objective was to implement continuous formative assessment for the purpose of learning. But our ecosystem has evolved to adapt and adopt such a change in our existing teaching learning system. So the National Education Policy 2020 is also again emphasizing on changing the pattern of examination from high stakes to low stake to make it continuous and formative, to build the capacity of the entire ecosystem to help the learner to attain the full potential in the through the teaching learning process. So from rote recall to demonstration of understanding. So that is why in competency based education, the application of the concepts is becoming very important and relevant. How much a learner can apply the concepts, the real concepts learned in the classroom, in the real life scenario. So, for that, there is a need to demonstrate such application skills by teachers in the classroom. Then only it will happen. So, for demonstrating such skills by teachers in the classroom, a lot of capacity building is required for teachers. That is why the National Education Policy recommended for 50 hours of continuous professional development annually for teachers. The CISCE ecosystem, the Council for the Indian School Certificate Examination, and other school boards, various other school boards, all of them have introduced this 50 hours compulsory training, minimum 50 hours. It doesn't mention about the maximum. Up to the capacity of the teachers and the school ecosystem, they can go for more hours of learning. But it's very important, minimum capacity building programs to be attended by every teacher in annual programs. Large scale assessment at grade 3, 5, 8. In CIS ecosystem, it is called SHINE, Students Holistic Improvement and Nurturing Evaluation, grade 3, 5, 8. These are all diagnostic assessment, not to rank or to make pass fail of students, just to identify the learning level and learning gap as well as gifted nature of students. And the data created through this assessment is used for research purpose to provide learning, to identify the learning gap as well as to highlight the training needs of teachers in school level and state level and country as a whole. At Government of India level, PAREC has been established at NCRT for bringing quality, for developing quality standards in assessment. First, the PAREC is going to set standards for school boards across the country. Then the assessment and the best practices in teaching, learning, and assessment. Redesign the board exams to align with the learning outcome. So there is a need to develop learning standard framework in the ecosystem, which is being developed by the CISC. Other school boards are also developing it, and Parak is also in the process of developing learning framework. Every school ecosystem needs to develop a learning framework that connects the concepts and uh, the the application of those concepts in the real life scenario and the end outcome, the learning outcome, and measurement of learning outcome through innovative assessment practices. So this kind of exemplar resource material can guide the teachers to, to adapt and adopt to the innovative assessment practices. So type of modern assessments. So let us see what are the modern assessment tools available. Diagnostic assessment. As I said, the key stage assessment recommended by the National Education Policy is one of the very strong and powerful and beautiful tool to be used as a diagnostic assessment. It should be conducted before instruction to identify student need, example pre-test learning, inventories, interviews, the class interaction by teacher with the students, then various informal assessments like CUSES, All these are diagnostic tools. It helps teachers to adapt instruction to students' strength and gaps. So teachers will get an idea what is the level of my students. Then accordingly, the teacher can develop instructional strategies. So the formative assessment is another way of uh, bringing innovative assessment that is continuous and interactive. Uses polls, observation. It supports feedback and growth. So Singapore's school's formative assessment led to a 20% increase in math proficiency scores. So they use this kind of assessment as a feedback mechanism to the teachers and the ecosystem. It's very important to use modern assessment strategies in the classroom for promotion of learning. So I will also share with you another example of PISA result. In the 2000 PISA result, Germany's performance was very poor in mathematics. So as a result, Germany has decided to implement mathematical education compulsory in high school classes. Before that, it was optional. So in order to bring mathematical literacy among all the students at the 15 years of age, government has taken a strategic decision based on the feedback. Similarly, Brazil has taken so many interventions to improve the quality of education based on the PISA assessment result. Similar assessment. These are all assessments, international assessments, but 358 assessment. The assessments conducted at a school level, at board level. These kind of assessments will also help the ecosystem as a whole to improve and bring efficiency in the teaching learning process. So, in the summative assessment, again, it evaluates learning outcomes at the end of a course or a unit. So, for example, our terminal examination, our year end examination, these are all examples of summative assessment. So, they evaluate learning outcomes at the end. But then the limitation of that assessment is there is less time for intervention, remediation, and timely action. So it another drawback is it often high stake. Example, final exam. It brands students. It grades students. The national assessment, but the assessments at competitive entrance examinations, the board assessment. These are all high stake summative assessment with less scope for interventions and remediation. So PISA 22 results show the importance of summative assessment for international benchmarking. For benchmarking purpose, this is good, but this will not immediately benefit the learners. For policy decision, for policy interventions, these tools can be very powerful, can be used as a powerful mechanism for bringing new changes to the ecosystem. But it will not help the learner immediately. So the performance assessments here, the students demonstrate knowledge by solving real world problems, learning connected to life, application of skills in real life scenario. So children find it more useful. And if the children are with the right aptitude, they will be finding this kind of assessment more interesting. They will be loving it. And this performance of the students, this assessment will also create interest in teaching learning practices. Students will become active learners in the classroom. So the science project, if the child has good potential and aptitude, the child will do that project with full interest, and it can create wonders. So it develops critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborative skills. When the children jointly work for a project, it develops so many social skills. They're all very important tools. Let's see authentic assessment. So tasks simulate real life context. These are all authentic assessments. The portfolio, presentations, simulations. So these are all continuously happening. And in that process, you can evaluate a child. But in our current scenario, there is less scope for adding these sort of assessments in the year-end examination. So gradually, our assessment system should change to incorporate weightage of portfolio, presentation, simulations, so that the continuous performance of students throughout the academic session or throughout a course can get weightage in the end result of assessment. It encourages skill transfer from school to workplace or daily life. So there is another wonderful example. There are many countries like Canada. It's very important to do project work and also to join for apprenticeship program. Without undertaking certain hours of apprentices, the students are not eligible to get certification at the end of their course at secondary or the higher secondary level. In India, project-based learning is there in the CISC ecosystem, but it needs more restructuring, more connection with real life scenario, and more monitoring for making it as an independent work of students. So competency-based assessment, it measures what students can do, not just what they know. It focuses on mastery of skills, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. Then, if you look at the research that has happened at UNESCO level, 45% of countries adopting competency-based assessment report increased students' engagement. That is why the National Education Policy also recommended for moving away from rote learning to competency-based education. So it provides a platform for the students for active learning. So let's see what are the principles of good assessment. So the UNESCO's principles of good assessment, you know, it should be valid. It measures what is supposed to measure. So the assessment should serve the purpose, that validity and the reliability. It produces consistent results across contexts. So it's very important to make our assessment reliable and valid. And it should be inclusive, accessible for all students, including those with disabilities and diverse socioeconomic background. So many advanced school education system, CISC, CBSE, international boards, all of them have special provisions for specially abled children. So the objective is to provide inclusive assessment environment for all the learners. It should be equitable, free from cultural, linguistic, or gender bias. It should be relevant, aligns with the curriculum and the real world skills. When we talk about aligning our learning with the 21st century requirement, it's very important to measure those skill set, abilities, aptitude, and knowledge and uh, application of concepts in the real life scenario, the ability of the learner to apply those concepts in the real life scenario through the assessment mechanism. So, in the global perspective, equity and inclusivity in the assessment is very important. Many students face barriers due to language, culture, or socioeconomic status. So, you are very familiar with it. If children from a rural background only familiar with the regional language, if shifted to a English medium school, there will be learning gap. Naturally, will happen. So, it's very important to provide equal opportunity, equitable opportunity. So, in Africa, there is a UNESCO report that standardized assessment often underrepresented girls' competencies due to socio-cultural biases. So everyone is not equal. In India also, this kind of situation is there. So discriminatory practices, economic factors favoring boys, etc., is often not bringing out the best out of or the realistic aspects of learning from all the students. So the modern assessment should promote differentiated tasks, allowing all learners to demonstrate understanding. It's very important to design assessment tools to, to suit the requirements of diverse learner. So, what are the signs of reliability and validity? Results are consistent over time, settings and evaluators. And signs of validity, the test measures the skills or knowledge it claims to measure. An example is PISA. PISA's reading test is designed to assess critical literacy but not rote memorization of test. Similarly, the PISA test of mathematical literacy and scientific literacy They're not direct questions. They are all measuring the ability of the learner to apply the concepts in the real life scenario. It's a critical thinking, problem solving, the understanding of uh, various unfamiliar situation, how to react in an unfamiliar situation, all are measured through this kind of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches. So PISA is one of the very good example of using modern assessment technique to measure the learning outcome and learning level of students. So multiple measures approach. It, the assessment should combine various methods for a holistic view. The written exams is one way, measure knowledge recall, performance task, it assesses application of skill, portfolio, track growth over time, and project, that is another way of tracking growth over time. So you can adapt and adopt to interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches in assessing students through innovative assessment practices. So redesigning assessment, moving beyond traditional evaluation method. The shift has to happen. It needs to bring creative assessment, reflects the need for evaluating critical thinking and problem solving skills, allowing students to demonstrate their understanding in innovative and meaningful way. So it's very important to measure the 21st century learning requirements. So the modern assessment should facilitate the measurement of skills that needs to be possessed by the learner to lead a successful life in the 21st century. So that calls for redesigning the assessment. So continuous internal assessments and project work are steps towards holistic formative evaluation. Here comes the role of ensuring the real work done by students, the project work, the portfolio, and whatever evidence is produced by the students should be realistic, and it should be validated through the assessment mechanism attached to measure the reliability of the work done by the learner. So it's a blend of formative and summative assessment. It uses digital tools for real-time feedback. It evaluates not only answers, but thinking process and creativity. So end answer is not very important, but the entire process is important. The thinking process. So in the mathematics, the step-by-step answer is, step-by-step marking is followed. A similar kind of approach. The end result is not that important. Rather than the end result, the process is important. That process give reflection on the learning level and the capacity of application ability of the learner. It is evidence-based and quality assurance cell for each school. So for bringing innovative assessment mechanism, there needs to be a quality assessment mechanism in every school. So UNESCO recommends 80% formative and 20% summative in competency focused curriculum. It's very important. So every school, every teacher should understand the importance of evidence-based independent assessment and development of assessment tools to promote learning as well as assess the student to find their competitiveness, their ability to fit into the 21st century requirements. Because it's an ever changing world, ever evolving world. The time is changing. So it's important to understand the problem solving ability of the learner rather than understanding the problem or defining the problem. So data driven instruction using assessment data. So all the assessment creates a lot of data. In fact, every educational institutions, teachers, examination bodies, we are all sitting on huge reservoir of data. But we are not using this data effectively for bringing evidence-based decision making to bridge the learning gap, to bring transformation in the teaching learning practices, and to identify the gifted nature of students. So it's very important to bring data driven decision making, data driven instruction at classroom level and school level. So the assessment results guide teaching strategies, curriculum, pacing, and resource allocation. So students struggling with algebra receive targeted support modules. So you can identify who are the children who are struggle with algebra. So special focus can be given on those children. Similarly, any subjects, any topic, there can be special focus. The targeted intervention will be facilitated through data-driven instruction. There are also insights derived from data-driven decision making. It will give clear instructional pathways for teachers, and also this data can be used for teachers' capacity building by identifying the training needs of teachers as a whole as well as individual teachers. The school and system level data, there is aggregate data, and this data identifies trends, gaps, and policy priorities. Example, regional data showed rural students had lower STEM scores. Government intervention in teacher training can fill the gap of the the gaps in the science learning. So this will empower educators, teachers at the core. You are very well understand. The quality of an education system in a country cannot exceed the quality of the teachers. There is a saying. So teachers are at the core. If you have quality teachers, the system will bring best. The school will produce better outcome. So teachers design learning experiences. They facilitate inquiry and discussion. They mentor students' growth. They also lead to professional judgment. Their professional judgment matters. So resources the teachers need for giving their best. Teachers also need a lot of resources. So they need clarity in the competency based outcome. That is why learning framework is required for teachers. Learning framework, learning resources, assessment tools, exemplary resource material, everything is required for the teachers for building their capacity. Rubrics that define quality, exemplars of student work, diagnostic assessment tools, all are required by the teachers. So then assessment literacy, every teacher, every school head, the system as a whole needs to develop assessment literacy. As of now, our system understands only the language of mark. All of us are happy by seeing that 100 out of 100 or 90 out of 100 or 80 out of 100, whatever it is. But we are not looking into the ability, the attitude, aptitude, the skill set developed by the learner. So there is a need to bring that shift because our mark-based admission is one of the major culprit in promoting this mark-based culture. There is a rat race for mark, so that is killing the spirit of actual learning in our ecosystem. So align task with the learning goals, interpret evidences of understanding, use data to adapt to teaching, differentiate instructions effectively. These are all required for teachers. And once they understand these elements, we can, in a way, say that the teacher is literate in assessment aspects. So there is a need to invest in teachers. It has to be an ongoing process, job and learning, coaching over workshops, peer collaboration, teacher growth, fuel system growth. So we need to build the capacity of the teachers. The teachers' quality needs to be improved. So the schools, systems, and leadership all are equally responsible for building quality. So what schools needs to do? The school needs to bring an ecosystem where time for teacher collaboration within the school system with teachers in the neighborhood, learning hubs needs to be created. So a culture of learning, assessment, sharing needs to be created. So the more you share, the more you develop. Digital tools for feedback and portfolios, coherent policies, reduced administrative load. So technology should be used to the fullest to reduce the administrative load on teachers so that they can concentrate fully on teaching, learning, and innovative assessment practices. So there is a missing ingredient, trust. We need to trust our teachers because the traditionally our teachers are revered, the gurus. Nowadays the ecosystem does not trust teachers. That trust needs to be bring back. Trust empowers professionalism, encourage innovation, reduces compliance-driven teaching, builds accountability through ownership. So that independence to the teachers, encouragement to the teachers, it can do wonders. So the school ecosystem, the school heads who are listening me, they needs to keep it in mind that every teacher needs to be trusted. I don't mean that correction does not require. Correction is required, but you need to trust your teachers. Incentives that matter. Reward evidences of students' growth and appreciation matters. Recognize innovative assessment. You can give an appreciation letter to the teacher who do the innovative assessment, the teachers who do innovative assessment, align leadership evaluation with learning. So incentivize the good work done by the teachers. The role of leadership, leaders set priorities, protect instructional time, model learning cultures, sustain reform beyond individuals. So classroom assessment best practices, let me share. So I'll take your queries later on. Let me finish my discussion points. Then later on, I think many of you will have queries and you must have shared it in the chat box also. I will attend to it at the end. And, you know, uh, Nicey can also help me in pulling out the valid questions. So align assessment with learning goals. We need to align assessment with the learning goals. Every task should map to specific learning outcome. Example, if a goal is problem solving, assessment must involve applying concepts, not rote answers. So align the assessment with learning goals. Clear rubrics and criteria. Students understand what is expected. Rubrics improve fairness and reliability. Science lab report rubric evaluate hypothesis, methodology, analysis, conclusion. So these kind of evidence-based assessment needs to be brought into the classroom practices. Frequent low-stake checks. This is assessment for learning and assessment as learning. So short, regular assessments reduce stress and increase retention. This also promote active learning, daily quizzes, weekly reflections, class poll. These are all examples. Feedback that supports growth, effective feedback, timely, specific, actionable feedback. You know, you solve problem correctly, but consider explaining your reasoning more clearly. So this kind of feedback should be given by the teachers to the students regularly. So this can improve performance. Students' involvement, self-assessment, and peer review build metacognition. Students track their own growth and set learning goals. So capability building is required. The instead of comparing with another student, let the child compare himself, his previous performance with his current performance, and what is his target for the next level. So a kind of positive spirit needs to be developed in the ecosystem and with the learners. Technology in assessment, we need to use technology to the fullest to reduce the administrative burden on teachers. So in the CISC's key stage assessment, technology is fully used, and there is a platform called a Creative Horizon. So this platform is aimed to provide, a platform to the teach students to participate in various activities. And when they participate in various activities, in a way, it assesses the learner. It assesses the skill set, competencies of the learner. So indirect way of promoting learning in an unthreatening manner. Joyful assessment that needs to be bring into the classroom and the learning area. So the Google Forms, Kahoot, LMS Analytics, adaptive software, these are all technology available. So instant feedback can be given, personalized pass, easy tracking, all will happen. Adaptive math program improved student scores by 50 to 20% in pilot students. So this is exactly the CISE Shine is aiming for. It's an adaptive assessment. When the children are of class 5, if they are not able to answer questions at grade 5 level, then the system will throw grade 4 level questions and grade 3 level questions. Then accordingly, the learning gap can be identified. Similarly, if the child is answering in a rapid way, in a fast manner, then higher order thinking skill questions can be given. More challenging questions can be given. So the system will be able to identify the giftedness of the children. So this kind of adaptive testing is a wonderful tool, and technology can be used to bring this adaptive testing to the classroom. Culturally responsive assessment. It aligns task with the student context and experiences. Contextualization. The learning should be contextualized. Assessment should be contextualized, relevant to the scenario, relevant to the situation, relevant to the cultural background, relevant to the socioeconomic background. That kind of assessment needs to be developed to be used in the classroom promotion of learning. So it reduces and improves engagement and validity. In a familiar situation, children will be happily participating in assessment as a mechanism of learning. So it's very important to make it culturally relevant. So reflective practices for teachers. Teachers should analyze assessment data to refine instruction, adjusting lesson plans based on student misconceptions identified through formative assessment is an example. So these kind of mechanisms needs to be followed by the teachers in the classroom on a regular basis. And I said it before also, the data will give insight into the capacity building needs of teachers. This should be used to build teachers' capacity. Teachers must be equipped to design competency aligned assessments, interpret learning evidence, provide actionable feedback, personalized instruction, engage students in self assessment. So, an active learning should happen. Teachers should become an active partners of learning. Instead of instructional led learning, partnership in learning. That should happen. So, as rightly stated by Andy Hargreaves, the quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers, nor the trust placed in them. It's both are important. The trust in the teachers and the quality of the teachers, both are equally important. So, beyond the classroom, what the teachers are expected to do, what the ecosystem is expected to do. Students as partners, they are partners of learning. Students reflect on progress, set learning goals, self assess using criteria, build lifelong learning skills. They are active partners in learning. That's why in today's time, the digital era, it's very important to follow flipped classroom. Beyond class 6, that teacher-led teaching learning is not interesting for the students. So give more independence to the students to participate in active learning. Let them do and learn, collect information, and it can be refined in the classroom through the teaching learning process and assessment practices adopted. Parents and partners. The partnership of teachers, students, and parents are very, very crucial. Shift mindset from marks to mastery. It's a huge challenge. So, for bringing a small change in society, you need to bring a big change in the minds of the people. So, that change, Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, be the change that you would like to see it in the society. So, that who will bring that change? And for bringing that change, parents are a big, stakeholder. And without their support, the teachers and the ecosystem will not be able to bring any change. So the obsession for mark should gradually shift to mastery on in the subject, the ability of the child, the skill set of the child, the ecosystem, the society, the parents should be able to appreciate the abilities and skill set of the students. Understand progress indicators. The parents should be educated. The assessment literacy should also be developed in parents. So understand progress indicators. So that needs to be explained to the parents. Support emotional and social growth. Transparent communication build trust. And for the whole purpose, technology as an enabler, AI-based diagnostic identify gaps. You know, the technology can be used to identify the gaps, adaptive assessments, personalized pathways, analytics support teacher decisions. Pedagogy always comes first. These kind of tools through technology can be implemented for promotion of learning and assessment. So, what does the international assessment data says? Because international assessments often follow innovative assessment practices. So, the global learning assessment landscape, UNESCO inventory tracks national and international assessment system. In India, National Achievement Survey is an example. Similarly, various board exams are examples. So, it provides data on learning outcomes, learning gaps, and trends. Asia and Africa show large disparities in literacy due to access and assessment policies. SDG 4, the Sustainable Development Goals and the learning outcomes. The goal 4.1 clearly says ensure all children achieve minimum proficiency in reading and maths by 2030. The National Education Policy is also recommending for that, and the whole ecosystem is working for it. And assessment of data is key to tracking progress and equity. UNESCO 2023 data says 258 million children still out of school globally. Assessment guide interventions are required to identify their learning level and learning gap. Program for International Students Assessment, PISA. So OECD's PISA evaluates 15-year-old. They read the essential competencies of reading, maths, and science in every 4 years now. Before it was 3 years. And again, the digital literacy and financial literacy is also assessed through the PISA program. And PISA assessment also connect the learning with the socio-economic scenario. So, lot of strategic decisions, strategic inputs is thrown by the PISA data. The the diagnostic tool used in PISA is a valid evidence for strategic divisions by countries and economics. It focuses on real world application of knowledge, not memorization. And multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach is followed widely in the PISA testing, provides data to compare educational systems internationally. It compares systems and the achievements of system followed in one country with other. So it is comparable with economies and countries. So UNESCO data on equity. Girls perform equally or better in reading globally, but are underrepresented in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and management in some regions. Socio-economic gaps remain significant. Assessment help identify and address inequalities. So this kind of assessment will give insights to the decision makers, the policy makers of the country, and the leaders of the economy and nations to develop strategies to fill the gap, to to go and evolve policies to develop the education scenarios in the country. So based on this assessment, what are the global insights and evidences available? So PISA insights, it tests real world problem solving. So the capacity of the students of a country on the problem solving skill will be assessed through scientific literacy, mathematical literacy, and reading literacy, also financial and digital literacy. So the students, ability to explain, analyze, and justify answers and connect with the real world problems and how to tackle a situation in an unfamiliar situation. So these kind of skills are tested through PISA, and high performance correlates with the coherent systems. Curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment must align to help the learners to achieve high performance in PISA. So it's a very long target for a country like India. And what PISA reveals, its continuous feedback improves achievement. Students learn more when they understand expectations. Ownership and agency deepen engagement will happen. Assessment shapes classroom culture and motivation. High performing countries emphasizes teacher professional development and assessment literacy. And if a high performance in PISA is also an indication of the well developed socio-economic condition of the country too. So that is why socio-economically advanced countries perform better in PISA. In India, last year, PISA for Schools program happened, and many CISC schools participated in PISA for Schools program. And the outcome of these schools were better than the European standard or the standards of Singapore and Finland. The reason is very simple. The students of economically well-off families go to these schools, and the teaching learning practices of these institutions can match with the global standard. Very simple. So, performance of students of a country in the PISA assessment directly linked to the socio-economic conditions and the quality of teaching, learning, and assessment that is happening in the country, in the educational institutions and systems across the country. So, in the UNESCO's perspective, let us see how large scale assessment contribute. Education must address the holistic development of the child. The Indian system also says that the national education policy also highlight the importance of giving holistic development of these students. Social and emotional learning matters as much as academics. It's very important. Social emotional learning, how a person emotionally address a situation. It's very important. The emotional learning, the emotional understanding, socio emotional learning, transferable skills enable lifelong learning. Exams alone cannot measure human potential. So it's the recommendation of the UNESCO. And exams cannot measure human potential. All of you will agree. That is why assessment has to be lifelong. Assessment has to be continuous. So the tools, techniques used should be used for continuous assessment and continuous recording of progress and comparing progress from early age till grade 12. The holistic progress card is a recommendation for measuring children's continuous progress from early age to grade 12. Once it is fully implemented, the Indian education system will be able to measure children's progress from early age till grade 12. So remediation can happen at various intervals to bring the best out of every child and to build the capacity of the ecosystem. The global example. So Finland education system is fully trust based. They say less is more. Low stake assessment is part of their system. Singapore assessment for learning, not ranking. So their assessment, the objective of the assessment is for learning. Canada values projects and performance tasks. The importance is it assesses ability of the learner to connect the learning with the real life scenario, application of skills at a different situation. And Kenya leverages technology to expand access and for diagnostics. So these kind of global examples are there. Our country also need to adapt and adopt to the new assessment techniques. So India's opportunity, being the youngest country in the world and the growing economy. Now, we have reached the fourth largest economy in the world. So India's scale enables rapid innovation and we are technologically very advanced. And only problem is the rural urban divide, the socio-economic disparity. Once we are able to address that challenge with the help of technology, we can also encash this opportunity to build the capacity of our country, our students, and by investing in education, transforming India as a developed nation. So combine technology with the teacher expertise, localize global best practices, teacher training, and continuous professional development, bridging rural urban learning gaps, skill based and future ready education, inclusive education through technology, defining global education model. These are all recommended in the national education policy. If we adapt and adopt to this kind of practices in our day-to-day teaching learning model, we will be building India as a powerful economy by 2047. But the quality of education imparted in our educational institution matters. So practical implementation steps. So there has to be a shared understanding of various stakeholders, largely with the society, the parents, the, the previous one, largely with with the parents, the the teachers and the students. Start small. A beginning is very important rather than accelerating. So after understanding the concept, the shared vision, then start these practices at a small scale in the classroom and the school level. Then align systems. You need to align and develop an enabling ecosystem to promote innovative teaching learning practices. Invest in teachers. The building the capacity of teachers is very important. Measure what matters. So the assessment should focus on what matters. The objective of the assessment should be clearly defined. So shared understanding explain the why of assessment reform. Change mindset before systems. Engage all stakeholders early. Teachers, parents, and students. Societies combined ownership and participation is required. Build consensus and capacity. So, three major stakeholders, parents, students, and teachers, should be actively involved in the transformation process. Start small, you know, pilot in select grades or subjects, learn from implementation, refine tools and practices, scale responsibly. The small step and big leap. Align systems, ensure curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. Curriculum defines outcome, pedagogy shares experiences, the assessment measures what matters, the effectiveness of the teaching learning practices. Thus, alignment of systems to ensure coherence is very important. And invest in teachers, provide job embedded professional training, coaching and mentoring, communities of practice, teacher growth drives system growth. So, the pre training of teachers, post training of teachers, on the job training all matters for building capacity of teachers. Measure what matters, application of learning, transfer across context, critical thinking, emotional and social growth. Instead of testing what knows, the skill set and abilities to be tested. So every teacher should develop the capacity and competency to test these skills while testing the learning level in mathematics, science, and whatever subjects they may teach in the classroom. Mahatma Gandhi has very beautifully described it. By education, I mean an all round drawing out of the best in every child and man, body, mind, and spirit. It's a beautiful quote. So, the real learning lies in the understanding and the ability to apply the concepts in the real life scenario, the problem solving skills developed during learning process. So, the holistic education is the answer. So, let's see what are the challenges and what are the solution to it. Common challenges, teachers training gap, lack of understanding. There is a societal understanding is required, limited resources and infrastructure, data quality and comparability issues, resistance to change from traditional testing. So there is a need to bring understanding. Why a change is required, that combined vision needs to be developed. This is called assessment literacy. That assessment literacy needs to be developed in the whole ecosystem. Cultural and linguistic bias. High stake test may favor certain groups, but it may not bring justice to others. So, localized content, inclusive assessment design needs to be developed. Ensuring validity. Avoid assessing memorization when skills are intended. Use project based and performance task or portfolio can be used for validity purpose and reliability purpose. Cost and technical capacity, large scale or digital assessments need investment in infrastructure and teacher capacity. Balancing standardization and flexibility, international benchmarks, PISA, TIMSS, PEARLS, and the classroom level formative assessment align global standards with the local context. So systems like CISC is working in those areas while attaining the national goals, how to develop international level competency skill set, how to align the classroom transaction with the global scenario, which is happening, and in the innovative teaching learning practices adapted and adopted in the ecosystem, can bring that transformation to the schools and to the classroom. So what are the future direction? In what direction the country and the world is moving forward? So growth of adaptive assessment. AI-powered systems adapt questions to student level in real time. So the schools can use this methodology, enhance engagement, and identify specific learning gaps. It creates self-awareness, self-management, societal awareness, responsible decision making, relationship skills. So, socio-emotional learning, that's very, very important. So, modern assessments increasingly include well-being, collaboration, resilience, helps educators support holistic development, learning analysis, use big data from assessments to create personalized learning pathways, predict students at risk, and intervene early. So, as a diagnostic tool used for right intervention at the right time. So, teachers' leadership, teacher as assessment designers rather than just implementers. They should design the suitable assessments for the students and use it in the classroom. Encourages innovation and contextualized assessment practices. Policy support, government must provide resources, training, data infrastructure to enable evidence-based assessment practices. So CIS ecosystem is preparing its teachers to adapt and adopt to the changing scenario, transforming assessment for learning and equity. Modern assessment transforms education from memorization-based evaluation to learning-focused development. When aligned with the global standards and local needs, assessments become a powerful tool for equity and excellence. So, what CASC has done? So, competency based assessment, as of now, there is 40% weightage increase in the competency based questions in the board examination. It gradually increases. And the level of these questions are also changing from year to year based on the evidences collected from the classroom transaction and the evidences collected through assessments like SHINE. So, based on that, the level of questions are also being improved. So, the CIC SHINE project 358. So, this is a key stage assessment as recommended by the National Education Policy. This helps to understand the learning level of the students and the alignment of teaching learning practices with the modern innovative teaching learning practices, increases examination duration to provide facility to the children to think, reflect, and answer. So there are many other steps. So holistic progress card is one mechanism. Then the focus shift on skilling of learners, introduction of new skill-based subjects, AI, robotics, data science, entrepreneurship, and also assessing various skills of applying real concepts in the real life scenario through the routine assessments. So key takeaways. Modern assessment is learner-centered and competency-based. Multiple forms of assessment provide a holistic understanding of student learning. International assessments guide policy and practice. Equity, inclusivity, and feedback are critical. Future trends involve artificial intelligence, analytics, and socio-emotional learning. So, recommendations for the educators. The educators should integrate formative and summative assessments beautifully, use technology responsibly, provide clear feedback and rubrics for assessment as learning and assessment for learning, as well as for the summative assessment, engage students in self and peer assessment, continuously analyze data for improvement, continuous professional development for teachers. So, teachers should invest in themselves too.
Sir,
Yes,
it
Casey.
appears
Yeah.
that our assessment standards have vaulted ahead into the 21st century, demanding high order critical and generative thinking. While our curriculum volume and classroom pedagogy remain largely rooted in the old model of content coverage, So, are the assessment reforms in India progressing faster than corresponding changes in curriculum and pedagogy? And if so, how can it be better aligned?
So it's very clear, Nicey, the system has to evolve. So now an understanding needs to be created among the educators why there is a need to move from the content oriented learning to competency based education and moving for competency based assessment. And our system should also facilitate, as long as there is a mark based admission criteria prevails, everyone will look for marks. That's the biggest threat for bringing assessment reform. So system as a whole needs to be aligned. The national education policy has thrown a lot of light into it, and in a vast country like India, changes are not possible overnight. So first there should be an understanding on the need of bringing change, then building capacity in the ecosystem, then gradual shift from the existing practice to the modern innovative practices. So some of the national school boards are already working on it, and state school boards are also following the path. So now the higher education needs to be aligned to it by by changing the admission criteria to the higher education space. And gradually, the whole ecosystem should be aligned for accepting and promoting the innovative assessment practices. So it is happening, but nothing can be expected overnight. It's a gradual process.
Sir, see, many of the skills we now claim to value, like collaboration, long term research, and iterative designs, simply cannot be tested in a silent examination hall. They can only be measured formatively over time. So, how can we upgrade formative assessments from being a sideline activity to a core component of the final board certificate? Is it time
Yeah.
to trust schools with a large stake in the final certification, ensuring that a student's scoreboard reflects their ability to work on a problem, not just to answer one?
So it's very important. So we need to trust the schools, but schools should also provide evidences for the real work done by the students. So rather than going by the emotions, the actual competencies and skill set needs to be measured. Even today, there is an internal assessment component in our examination system across the boards, minimum 20% and up to 50% internal assessment components. But the reliability and validity of those internal assessment components needs to be ensured by bringing measurement tools and by collecting evidences. So portfolio, project work, and participation of students in various activities, achievements in various activities, all can find a place in the assessment rubrics. So gradually, that culture needs to be brought in. Similarly, project based learning, the apprenticeship program, all can give weightage in the assessment and the, the achievements of students and the development and the measurement of skill set and abilities. So, in the days to come, we should not rely fully on theory, but other components needs to be brought in to the ecosystem for measuring the the skill set, abilities, and competencies of children. But when these kind of evidence based assessment tools are bring in, the higher education should also accept it. The higher education's alignment is also important. For example, 50% theory for skill subjects, it is almost accepted. But that 50% internal assessment component is not accepted for science subjects or the humanities and commerce subjects. So first of all, we need to have a common shared vision to bring these assessment practices in the ecosystem, then gradually move forward. But nothing stops us from bringing project based learning, portfolios, activity based learning to the classroom and aligning with the present ratio of internal assessment component. I can also share you another example. For the holistic development, even in the previous education policy, there are three internal assessment components at the grade 10 level. It is SUPW or the work education, socially useful productive work, art education, and health and physical education. How many of our schools and the educators are really measuring the contribution of the students throughout the school year in the health and physical education activities? What is the level of participation? How these children are getting A grade, B grade, C grade? We need to connect it with the participation of students in various activities. We need to connect the achievements of students in various art festivals, youth festival, for grading the students. So gradually we need to connect it with whatever we do it in the school and bring it to the assessment rating. So it's a process, a shift that needs to happen through creating awareness and by developing rubrics by the ecosystem.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Sir, we have another question here. Like, do the modern assessment practices adequately address the higher levels of the revised Bloom's taxonomy, particularly the evaluate and create, or do they largely remain at the apply stage?
So the educators here, uh, I request all of them to reflect when we start talking about competency based assessment. So we are at the nascent stage. It takes time. That is why, I can talk about CISE. CISE uses the result of SHINE project, the key stage assessment, to understand the, the level of understanding of students in the application based learning. So depending upon their level of understanding, then higher order thinking skill questions can be used in the board examination. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be huge hue and cry because the admission to the higher educational institutions is connected with the score of the children, and it should not create social unrest. So that is why there is a need to move forward gradually. In the school-based assessment, there is no limit in using higher order thinking skills questions. If the children are not scoring well, the head of the institution will immediately call the explanation of the teacher why these children are not doing well. And that understanding needs to be created among the head of the institution or the decision making authorities and the parents also, because there is a shift happening. So there is a time consuming process to understand the testing of application skills. So a buying in should happen, and a whole understanding of the ecosystem needs to be developed. So I cannot say that higher order thinking skill questions are not used, but very sparingly. Otherwise, in the next day's newspaper after the board examination, there will be big heading appear, out of syllabus questions. No, the board asked questions to traumatize the students. So these kind of this, what does it reflect? It's a reflection of the social mindset. So this social mindset should gradually change, and a facilitation should happen. So gradually everyone should work together. It's a social scenario. So higher order thinking skill questions can be used provided the result of the examination is not connected with the admissions or employment. As long as it remains as high stake, there is a limitation. So progress cannot happen speedily. It is a gradual process.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Given that real world professional environments are largely resource rich rather than closed book, should school and board exams move towards open book or resource assisted assessment models in this AI age? What do you think of that? What
See,
safeguards should be essential for that?
yeah, so I can talk about the example of Vietnam. Vietnam education system is one of the best in the country today by evolving, by building the capacity of the teachers. They are not resource rich, but by building the capacity of the teachers, they have evolved as an emerging education power. And if they continue this progress, they will emerge as a progressive and developed country in the next 10, 20 years. So, what you invest in education will decide the future of the country. So, there is no need to be resourcefully rich to implement competency based education. The practical world around you is is an experimentation ground, but the teacher should be able to take children to that practical area, connecting the learning with the real life, drawing examples from real life, asking children to go and experiment whatever is available, so that resourcefulness from whatever is available from the context from around the world, that can promote active learning. That is what we need to aim for. There are schools with full of resources. Their performance, okay, it matters. But other schools can also perform better, provided the teachers have a real understanding of the competency-based education. And, and it is being implemented in an unthreatening environment. The teachers should not be worried about their future. The performance of students are poor, so I may lose my job. That threat should not be there. In that threatening situation, competency-based education cannot flourish or come up, and that trust should be built up. And we should understand that the teacher also needs time to develop skill set and ability, and the support mechanism provided by the whole ecosystem to build the capacity of the teachers. That willingness should be brought in. Willingness will not come without motivation. That motivation can be an encouragement. Motivation can come from other incentives, but it's very important to motivate the stakeholders, particularly the teachers.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. So Reena Sharma has asked, since new innovations require time for effective implementation, to what extent could they be incorporated into classroom teaching?
It is up to the teacher. It's up to the teacher. If the teacher is confident that I can go at 120 speed, it's fine. That is why diagnostic assessment is required. It all depends upon the ecosystem, the learning level of students, the resourcefulness of the teacher, and the acceptance of the ecosystem. So, a small beginning, that is what in the presentation I suggested. A small beginning is required. Understanding of the learning assessment literacy is required. And based on the understanding, when you understand that a reform needs to happen and reforms are inevitable in assessment area, then that small beginning will happen by preparing the mind of the teacher. Then you accelerate the progress slowly from level 1 to level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6. Sky is the limit. So I leave it to the teachers. Your confidence, your ability, that matters.